So in this lesson, we're going to start looking at how to move the drone around the environment using four basic commands. And before we get into those commands, it's important to understand that drones move a little bit differently than your typical vehicle that you're accustomed to. For example, if you've ridden around in a car, you know that cars tend to go forward and backwards, left and right. Whereas a drone actually operates in what we call three-dimensional space. So it actually has a few different ways it can move. So let's kind of walk through what those look like. So first of all, let's talk about the difference between two-dimensional and three-dimensional movement. So in a two-dimensional space, as you'll see over here on the left, we have a y-axis and an x-axis. If my drone, we'll pretend, is the car, then if we're driving along the road, we're going forward, we have a positive y value. It's moving forward in the y direction. If we were to move backwards, put in reverse, and back up, we'd be moving in the negative y direction. Similarly, if we were to turn right, then we would be moving in the positive x direction. If we were to turn left with our car, we would be moving in the negative x direction. So we have this kind of xy coordinate system that we're very familiar with. Now, if we look over here on the right, you'll see that we have a three-dimensional axis, right? And because the perspective has to change to demonstrate what a three-dimensional axis looks like, it can become a little difficult to understand how these are related. So one of the things that we like to do is do what's called the right-hand rule. With the right-hand rule, what we will do is we'll stick our hand out, and then I want you to turn your hand sideways like so. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your pointer finger and stick it out, and you're going to put your thumb up like this, and then you're going to take your middle finger and stick it out like that. This indicates what the three axes that a drone can move in. So if you look at your index finger, you may call this your pointer finger, that finger represents the y-axis. Your thumb represents the z-axis, and then your middle finger indicates the x-axis. So this is a really easy way to remember when we're talking about things with our drone, that we can talk about three dimensions using this right-hand rule. So that's the right-hand rule. Let's look at now how our drone interacts with the environment. So here's our drone. You may recall that your drone has both a front and a back, and this is indicated by the red stripe and typically the different color propellers on the front versus the back. With this drone, we want to be able to make it move forward, backwards, left, and right, but we also want to make it move up and down. So our forward and backwards movement is still our y-axis. Our left to right movement is still our x-axis. But our up and down movement now becomes our z-axis. And there's actually two commands we're going to learn that indicate our z-axis. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the first two commands, which allow us to interact with the x and the y-axis. Now what you'll see is we have our drone set up on a paper that demonstrates our different axes. So the first command that you're going to learn in the lesson is called roll. Roll simply means to take the drone and make it slide to the left or the right. I say slide because it just tends to kind of move left right. This is not really a motion that we would typically see in a car, for example, because again, we're operating in two-dimensional space. We have things like friction that hold the car from being able to slide left or right. So typically, if you think of a car, it's going to turn like this, right? So we have our drone flying along, it goes like that, right? It's a gradual turn. Whereas with a drone, since it's up in the air, if we want to make it go to the left or to the right, we simply have it roll to the left or roll to the right. The way that this is done is that the propellers on the side that we're rolling towards have a lower power setting than the propellers that are opposite of the side we're rolling towards. So let's say that we wanted to roll to the right, which is the positive x direction. Then what we would do is we would say roll a certain percentage, and what it will do is it'll turn the power down on these two rotors and turn the power up on these two rotors. That will cause it to turn like so, and then it will glide along this direction. If we want to go to the left, which will be the negative x or a negative power setting, then the blades on this side, the propellers on this side, would turn down their power, and these would be turned up, which would make it roll this direction, and the thrust coming from those will push it in that direction. So that's how these work in terms of roll. So roll positive will roll to the right, roll negative will roll to the left. Let's now talk about pitch. Roll is the x-axis, pitch is the y-axis. So pitch means the forward or backwards tilt of the drone. So remember that thrust is coming out from underneath the drone. So if we tilt back this way, then the thrust is going to push the drone backwards. If we tilt it nose down or nose forward, then it's going to push it forward. So that is how pitch works. So if we want to go in a positive pitch direction, then we're going to nose forward or nose down, and the thrust will push it forward. If we want to go in the negative, we're going to pitch backwards, and it will push the drone backwards. So the back end will go down. So that's our X and Y motions. Now, the other one that we have is our Z motions, and so our Z motions are actually two. The first one we're going to discuss is yaw. Yaw, Y-A-W, is the term for the movement or the pivoting on the z-axis. So if you imagine that there's a line coming straight out of the drone like so, this would represent the z-axis. So if I want the drone to face a certain direction, so let's say we want to face to the positive x, then I can have it spin like so. It's rotating around this z-axis here and facing a different direction. So it doesn't actually move in terms of the x and y coordinate system. It just simply pivots around. So that's yaw. Yaw to the right is a positive. Yaw to the left is a negative value. The other one that we have is throttle. Throttle refers to how much power we're sending to the motors to make the drone go up or down. So what we're going to do is if we want the drone to rise up or go up or positive in the Z direction, then we turn the throttle to a positive value and it goes up. If we want the drone to go down, we turn the throttle to a negative value and it throttles down and lowers the drone back down to the ground. So those are our three axes that we can operate in, and those are the four commands that we're going to learn and work with in this lesson. So again, roll, pitch, yaw, and throttle.